Tonight is our second installment, and we asked a well-known West Coast sailor from Port Townsend to be our featured storyteller. I'm really happy to have the chance to introduce Captain Nancy Erley. I met Nancy quite a long time ago in Newport Beach, California. I took a workshop from her on picking someone up who went overboard. And I was so impressed with her as an instructor. A few years later, I went back and took another one of her workshops, which was going up the mast. Unfortunately, that day there was like really horrible weather, which is unusual for that area in California. And her first tip was, do not go aloft during a lightning storm. So we did the lesson inside the boat in the safety of the boat, and I still learned a great deal. Years later, Nancy and another instructor and I camped on the same living room floor as we took advantage of a volunteer opportunity to teach a bunch of women sailors who were hungry for learning. It's hard to understand how much gratification I'm sure Nancy gets, but I know I do, from reaching out and helping women learn new things about sailing. It's actually very fun. So that experience, I think, made Nancy and I what I'd call dry land shipmates. I've never been sailing with Nancy, but I'd love to do it. And then I discovered that Nancy was on our advisory board, and she has done so much for NWSA. She has never said no. And I'm very happy to call her one of my wonderful friends. So welcome, Nancy Erley, Captain.
I'm here.
Oh, Nancy. Now, did you hear my awesome introduction to you?
Unfortunately, I did not.
Oh, well, I'm not going to do it again, but
It's been recorded, so I'll get it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready to roll.
Okay, let's go, girl.
Okay. This is the story of the 40 camels. I'm Nancy Erley. I'm from Port Townsend, Washington. I hold a Master of Oceans captain's license. And from 1989 to 2001, my 38-foot sailboat, Tethys, took me around the world twice. 65 different women participated as crew on the various legs of the voyage, as I used Tethys as a learning platform for women sailors. I want to share with you one of the more unusual things that occurred on our slowly unfolding adventure, the story of the 40 camels. Suakin, Sudan, Suakin is in northern Sudan. It's an excellent port in the Red Sea. It's on the left-hand side, roughly halfway up as you travel the 1,000 miles up from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. In 1517, the Ottomans occupied Suakin and began making the buildings of coral, with walls decorated with intricate stone and wood carvings. In the 19th century, it became the primary slave trade port in Eastern Africa, abandoned around 1920 after slave trade diminished. The exquisite coral buildings were left to ruin, and ruined they were in 1993 when we anchored Tethys in the harbor. To our surprise, the Colonel of Immigration, the man in charge, will hold our passports for the duration of our stay. We aren't singled out. This is the case for all the visiting boats. It's unprecedented in our travels, and it's disconcerting. It means we can't leave whenever we want to. It's hot and dry. The ruined coral buildings come right near the water's edge. We're anchored in a crumbling ghost city. Feral children play in the ruins. They jump from the walls into our dinghies that are tied up while we're ashore. A curfew is in force in Suakin. No one is to be about after dark. We've been greeted and welcomed to the town by Awad, an English-speaking local. He acts roughly as a concierge who helps us get fresh water, fuel, money exchange, and all the necessaries. The water comes either in a tanker or by a 55-gallon drum on wheels pulled by a donkey. Each boat takes some in their dinghies by jugs back to the boats. According to the boats that got water the next day, our water has less sand in it. Awad wants us to meet his wife and family and come for dinner. It'll be a walk out of town after curfew. We go, but early on feel we might have made a mistake. It's dark. We have no clue where we are or how far it is, and no way to get help. Awad has our flashlight and leads the way. It turns out to be 2 miles. We get to his village with tall wooden walls around each house. He opens one of the walls and we're at his home. Their possessions are 1 bed, 1 lamp, 1 communal bowl we all eat from with our right hand, and 1 cup. He motions us to sit on the bed. There are no chairs. We get water from one of the 55-gallon drums, and I'm quite sure that's where we got Giardia. Everyone in the village drinks from the same scoop. The Giardia was eventually cured by a $3 over-the-counter medicine, Flagyl, in Egypt. The evening found us fascinated with one another, although only Awad spoke English. His wife and his sister plaited our hair. They made us coffee from green coffee beans that they roasted over a fire. Half sugar and half super strong coffee got the heart racing. I don't remember sneaking home, but we must not have gotten caught. One evening, which turns out to be our last in Suakin, we're shopping in the modest stalls in the town, and just before curfew, a uniformed soldier comes to me and motions me to follow him. I don't immediately, and he makes it clear that the colonel wants to see me. What? Our crew has an agreement that we won't be separated. We'll stick together like the 3 musketeers. But I was to come alone with the soldier, and so I did. The colonel's office is a Quonset hut. The soldier stands guard at the outside of the door and motions me to go in. The colonel, in full uniform, sits behind his desk, facing the door. He points to the chair in front of his desk for me to sit, which I do. It's air-conditioned, and I'm cold and nervous. He's rather good-looking and has sparkly blue eyes. A bead of sweat is trickling down his right temple. He says, I want to offer you 40 camels for your crew, Sue McNabb, to be my 4th wife. Uh-oh. Several thoughts race through my head in the next breath or two. What to do is one of them. You've got a deal is not one of them. I think beads of sweat started to trickle down my temples about now, too. The thought of our passports flicks through my mind a few times. What to do? Time is standing still. Sue is a fine woman, charismatic, generous, fun and smart, a leader, long dark hair, and shall I say well-proportioned and pleasing in figure. We've been friends since we were 16-year-old counselors at Girl Scout camp in Wisconsin. I'm not sure she wants to be this man's 4th wife. The colonel is the highest-ranking guy in town, the big cheese. I'm thinking this is a lot of camels and likely a generous offering. How not to offend and get out with our passports. It's time. I stand up. I look him directly in the eyes and hold the eye contact. I thank him for his offer and slowly say, but I must have Sue aboard as crew to get our boat back home to Seattle. I let his eyes go and turn and walk out the door. Holy sheesh. I scurry back to the boat and have a fairly hilarious night chat with Sue and Patty. We figure he would normally negotiate with the father for the daughter's hand. And lacking that, and no brothers, the next best person of authority is the captain. And the poor guy got me. I was right. Sue doesn't want to be the colonel's 4th wife, or even his 1st, although it's too late for that. We agree an early departure is in order, and as captain, I will pick up the passports as soon as the station opens. I go in the morning, while the gals get the boat prepped to depart. I come back empty-handed. For our boat, everyone has to show up in person to get her passport. He wanted another look at Sue. I suggest she resist the urge to flirt. We get the passports and are out of there, but not without Giardia, whose symptoms we will notice in a week or so. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Nancy, my hat is off to you. That's, I can't imagine having that happen and being responsible for being diplomatic and having it turn out well. So, hey, you just went up in stature a lot for me. I've heard other stories about going through that area and not having great outcomes. So very, very interesting. If anyone has questions about Nancy's story, we can come back to it.
Let me say one thing, Deb, can I butt in here?
Yes, absolutely.
For me, the reason this story is important, it's because I think cruising and boating is a slowly unfolding adventure. And what really makes something an adventure? It's an experience that you haven't had before, all right? And what makes it, if you enjoy cruising, is that you find that you're in these situations that are unusual, okay? And you need to figure out what to do, okay? What I had learned from wandering around there was that the women didn't look the men in the eyes, at least in public. Probably they did back in behind those walls and everything. So I decided I'd look them in the eye and see if that would work. The other thing we learned out there was you could cast a spell on them too. That worked in another case when Patty had to cast a spell on one of the shopkeepers to get him off of me. Anyway, he begged for the spell to be released. So those were the two things I had in my arsenal of tricks to try. I didn't think casting a spell on the guy who held the passports was a great plan, but all of that's I was looking inside myself for an answer, all right? And that's what boating does for us, I think, and travel maybe is what it is. It's part of the slowly unfolding adventure. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm trying to learn how to use this Q&A, and I had it up here for a second. Pardon my voice. Yeah. Someone from New Orleans said, I know a few fellas that like to cast a spell on, so they have that spell thing there. This person I know for a fact has a Saint's voodoo doll outside of their entry door on their house. Molly, I have lost my chat function. Let me see. Okay, here we go. My Q&A, we do have a question. Okay. And they want to know what the disease was. Is it the runs?
Oh, Giardia. Stinky diarrhea. How's that work for you on a boat?
Yeah, not good.
Digestive problems, yeah.
So, yeah, did the whole crew get that?
Oh, yes. We all drank, there were only 3 of us, but we all drank out of that same cup. And, yeah, that's probably where we got it. And you wonder, the water that we put on the boat, if we were poisoning ourselves with it. But since the flagell fixed it, once we got to Egypt, we just had a week or so of really bad toilet time.
Now, if you had advanced knowledge that you'd need this kind of diplomatic prowess and courage in confronting such situations, would it have changed anything for you?
I don't know. We ran into a couple other situations, where you're checking in or trying to check out, that we had to figure out what to do. I found in most cases being dressed nicely for a cruiser was good, because these immigration people, they're in their uniforms and it's an important job. And if we show up in our scruffiest t-shirts and cut off pants, that isn't a good look. And to be deferential usually and vulnerable and just say yes and follow along the rules. That was the general pattern that worked great for me.
Would you go through that? Would you go through that same route today?
Well, the second time around, we didn't go that way because of pirates. And so we got to go around South Africa, which has its own little problems. There's the Wild Coast, which is 250-mile stretch with no safe port, and the current whipping you down there at 5 knots plus whatever your sailing speed is. So we chose not to go that way then. And I think of the piracy thing as kind of a ongoing hurricane. So I would skip it. Mm-hmm.
So that question was from Laura Haas. I think you might remember her.
I do.
We got another question from Becky Pratt, and that was about the boat, plumbing holding up to the need of having the revenge.
Yeah, well, it's when you go around the ocean, you do pass through. Everything goes through the toilet and out in the sea. Okay, unless you get into a little harbor where you need to keep it collected.
So you got the valve open.
Yeah, the valve open for the ocean passages head up the Red Sea too. Plus, that was 30-something years ago, like, wasn't it? 93?
Yeah. Hey, we're getting there, girl. Vicky Marquette, I think that's the way you say her last name. She's asking, what locations have you sailed that have been the most amazing?
There are too many to mention. The Red Sea was really amazing because it was very unusual to have an all-women boat going up the Red Sea. It was unusual to have an all-women boat anywhere, but especially in the Red Sea because you were a whore if you were not accompanied by a man. Okay, so that wasn't really such a good posture to have. So we would hire out the kids from the other crew, the male boys. We had a case of Snickers bars. So we would buy their time to go with us to the market with a couple of Snickers bars, so we would have a male in. Because if you didn't, yeah, if you were getting on the bus, you'd get goosed from behind. I mean, it was awkward. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's you're a brave woman, and I know that you've had some great adventures, and maybe you'll come back and tell another story. We really appreciate you, Nancy, and I'll send you the glowing intro that I gave you so that you can get a grin about. I'm sure you'll remember how we slept on the floor.
Oh yeah, memorable. Thank you.